formed in a dream, kept in a thought, carried across oceans, spoken in whispers, passed down from elders, planted in gardens of okra, prayed for in sanctuary, resisted with fury, protected with faith, created with love, born into being, from root to bone. You are here.
This podcast talks about colonial, racial, and gender-based violence. Please listen at your own pace and capacity. And remember to do what you need to do to care for yourself if you feel activated by this content. Should you need resources, please check out our section on resources at decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well. Greetings, my good people. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I am so excited to hold space, to sit with, to introduce, to uplift the Dr. Autumn Asher BlackDeer. Before I get into introducing them, let me remind you of the space that you are entering. From Root to Bone podcast is a podcast for folks who are parched, honey, poised, and deeply primed to rehydrate our souls and do some unlearning together. It's a place where I unlock the gates and have some really real-ass conversations with elders, teachers, my intellectual crushes, of course, people doing the real-ass work towards reclaiming the juiciest parts of their ancestry, history, collective health, and liberation. And so many people, a lot of my students have called me the Rage Doctor. We'll get into that in another podcast episode at another place at another time. But I'm also the founder of Decolonizing Therapy and the author of the book. And my work in this world thus far has really felt that it is a call to action to lovingly hold a field that I deeply adore and that I love the work with the people, but didn't love these systems, structures, places, and spaces in the ways that they often blocked out and continue to invisibilize and disenfranchise people of the global majority. In particular, our beloved First Nations, Indigenous, Black folk, brown folk throughout the diasporas as well. And so are we really well if our mental emotional health is not highlighted, if we're not being conscious of the ways in which systems, structures, treaties, air quotes if you can't see me, policies, and fascism, we're not talking about how that has an impact on us. If we're not talking about how lack of food and funding and nourishment and community also has an impact on our emotional, mental health. And so today, it is such an honor to uplift somebody who, A, I have continued to learn from. B, I have just like admired from a distance. I'm like, oh, yes. If only I could have had colleagues like yourself doing the damn thing. And not that I didn't have some good ones. We're not saying that. But Dr. Autumn really brings a freshness, an honesty, a realness, and a sense of relatability along with the brilliance, right, of a sociologist doing the research in a frame that is deeply and uniquely also a voice for their people. And so I am going to first read a little bit of an introduction, and then I will read a piece from Dr. Autumn's most recent article, one of the recent articles. So Dr. Autumn Asher BlackDeer is a queer, anti-colonial, scholar activist from the Southern Cheyenne Nation. Her scholarship illuminates the impact of structural violence on American Indian and Alaska Native communities. Dr. BlackDeer centers Indigenous voices throughout her research by using quantitative approaches and big data as tools for responsible storytelling. So needed. Dr. BlackDeer is a racial equity scholar with an emphasis on Indigenous tribal sovereignty and is deeply committed to furthering anti-colonial abolitionist work. Woo! So Dr. Autumn, if I may, I have brought you here today because your work lives at this intersection of embodied resistance, and I mean that like literally, like a embodied resistance and intersection of research and a relationality that I think a lot of folks out there are hungry for. I know when I was in my doctoral program, there was often an energy of like quantitative research methods often felt disconnected at times, right? And I was in my doctoral program, let me see, 2004, 2005. I've graduated with my master's 2004, so I'm dating myself here. However, we have come a ways. And I remember at the time when I would bring in brother Dr. Harlan Prudence, who would talk a lot about two-spirit identity and what that was like for youth on reservations and the Northeast Two-Spirit Society to my little university in Jersey City, New Jersey. I would get complaints. Other professors, instructors, and teachers would be like, we want to focus on research. I'm like, this is research. Well, you're focusing a lot on qualitative. I'm like, well, qualitative research is also research, right? We have our phenomenological, our grounded theory. Let's get into it. But you're also bringing forth this level of accessibility and identity, and it feels like your people are behind you, like massaging your shoulders, if I may respectfully say. While I'm reading this, I'm like, this is what a lot of us need, and this is what these young green new scholars are wanting to see in themselves, see someone like yourself doing this work. And so before we hear all from you, I am going to read a little bit. So this is a 2025 article. By the way, you are so fast. Love it, love it. This is towards a scientific understanding of queer, trans, and two-spirit Native youth mental health disparities. Oof. Okay. This article, it looks like it was published January 26, 2025, from the Mental Health Science Journal. I think that's correct. I'm going to read the abstract, y'all. Queer, trans, and two-spirit Native youth experience exponential increases in the risk for health disparities, yet little is known about their distinct mental health needs. There remains a dearth of literature examining the unique intersection of indigeneity, gender, and sexuality, as well as age. As Indigenous populations in the U.S. have grown in the past decade, it is imperative to develop a comprehensive understanding of QT2S, Native youth, and mental health. The present work seeks to bridge the fields of scholarship on Native youth and LGBTQ+ communities' mental health disparities to illuminate gaps in scientific understanding of queer, trans, two-spirit Native youth mental health. This current paper will discuss theoretical frameworks, methodological considerations, can never say that, and mental health disparity scholarship on these youth, concluding with research recommendations towards developing a scientific understanding of our queer, two-spirit Native youth and their mental health. And it goes on. When I tell you people, the article is palatable, right? Understandable. It is a joy to read. And it is definitely identifying and talking about the role of colonialism and historical trauma. I'm going to read another line or two because I can't help myself. The nerd in me, right? I just get really excited. Clearly, I'm really so excited. Okay. The role of colonialism is critical to understanding history and contemporary traumas that impact queer, trans, two-spirit Native youth. Policies and legislation of the settler state emanating from European settler colonialism have criminalized homosexuality and imposed heterosexist Christian values and norms of what sexual behaviors and gender identities are considered appropriate. These pathologizing ideologies have persisted beyond the colonial time period, manifesting in the continued pathologization, me and words, of both queer and Native communities. For example, LGBTQ populations have been historically pathologized by mental health groups who previously diagnosed LGBT individuals with sexuality and gender-related mental illnesses in several versions of the DSM. Similarly, research that focuses on poor mental health trends tend to pathologize Native queer people, placing the onus on the individual's personal characteristics and identity rather than accounting for social determinants of health or colonialism at all. So, okay, last line. Historical trauma is widely researched and conceptualized within the realms of Indigenous mental health, linking colonization to present day disparities. Historical trauma is a framework created by Lakota scholar Dr. Maria Yellowhorse Braveheart to account for the vast disparities in mental health that persist across generations among Indigenous populations. Ooh, thank you so much, so much, so much, Dr. Blackdeer. We welcome you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
How was that hearing that? That was a mouthful. You wrote all that.
I know. I was, like, listening, I was like, "Oh, yeah. I remember that." It was, like, forever ago, but yeah.
It's an interesting feeling, isn't it? With like someone is either reading your words back to you or it sometimes I would imagine as an author, as a writer, as a sociologist, there is a piece that's like, oh, this is home autumn, and then this is this other aspect. How do you merge
No, I feel
yourselves?
like that's all me. We talked that way at the dinner table too. Like, I remember when I first started dating my partner, like, after a while, she would start saying, "I could write a whole dissertation on this." And I'm like, "I love that." Like, absolutely. Like, it's the same thing. Because 'cause I'm like, "These are this is what's happening. This is the kind of ways that we see us being treated and pathologized in real time," right? So, you will see me talking about colonialism all day, every day.
Same, same. Well, first, let me say that years and years and years ago, Dr. Maria Yellowhorse Braveheart and Roberto and Bonnie Duran's books changed my life as a practicing clinical psychologist. I
Wow.
was, doing my dissertation or starting to, and everyone was telling me I could not talk about this concept of the soul, right?
Mm.
Um, and my dissertation was really focused on the soul wound in inner city African American male youth, from the cotton fields to the concrete jungle. And
Mm.
so my fascination with intergenerational trauma stemmed from really clearly seeing direct and indirect methods, play out in family systems and how the youth were engaging relationships, and also how us as the practitioners and providers were or were not engaging with our youth
Yeah.
and how like our stuff was like hitting theirs. And so Dr. Yellowhorse Braveheart had taught this sort of seminar and it rocked me. It rocked me completely. And I remember asking her, like, does this my indigeneity is very much based in Panama, right? Like this isn't my people's land, although we were forcibly,
Right.
without consent, brought to this land. There
Right.
is still this part of separating
Mhm.
from that identity. And I remember asking some kind of like, I tried to make it sound good, but I was really just like femme personing and just, really
Yeah.
awkward about it. And it was like, can we am I able to talk about historical trauma in my work? And she was like, You better. I hope you do," you know? And I
Mm.
felt like it opened into, like, a permission to not continue to separate unconsciously or not, or segregate
Mm.
our solidarity together,
Right.
Indigenous Black folks, as well as our ways of seeing that our liberation is deeply tied together. And what do you think about that? How does that land for
Yeah.
you?
No, I think there's a lot of, like that's colonization working is when we, like, separate ourselves from seeing our solidarity, from seeing Black people as Indigenous, period, right? Like, that is a very effective colonial kind of lie, right? That folks that are, Black in the Americas now are not Indigenous to their original homelands, that are not and I also think too, the connection to the land that Black folks have today, like, that is very much, like, translatable to Indigenous people that are also from this land, right? Like, I feel like there's a lot of kind of nuance that people don't really get to talk about, like, my parents were forced to kind of build this country, so, like, obviously, I have a connection to this land, right? Even if, you know? And I think that there's not a lot of room for that. Like people kind of say, well, oh, I'm not Indigenous, so I can't say that. It's like, that's not true, right? We all have like a really deep connection to the land, and we really should be able to talk about that and like kind of, I think that would build solidarity immediately, right? For folks to say like, how how are you with the land? What is your relationship with the land, right? And just getting into that, that's your soul right there, right?
Yeah. Yes, yes. And we're not separate from that literally in any way, shape, or form. And so I suppose I'm wondering for folks that are listening in that are like, "Ooh, yeah, wait, let me get my thesaurus. Let me go." Does anyone have a thesaurus anywhere? Let me go to
Right.
Google. Let me dated
A
myself. I used to have
thesaurus.
encyclopedias, Autumn.
I
Like
love it. I know. The whole
you know,
bookshelf. Yeah.
like in your words, right? Like what were, or if you were, teach us, teach the children, what in a few lines, like what is colonization? Like what can we understand? What should we understand? What do you want us to understand about what colonization is, and how does that come through in your work, and how do you make sure you uplift um the wisdom in that as well?
Yeah. Well, I think I always say, like, whenever we talk about historical trauma, people are like, oh, we inherited all of that, trauma and, hardship, all those sorts of things. But I'm like, we also had like very thriving, full lives pre-colonization. And so whenever folks are like, well, what does that even look like? What is liberation? I'm like, we have to implicate colonialism to be able to kind of see that that was imposed upon us. We didn't choose it, right? So settler colonialism obviously began with like colonial invasion, right? Colonial contact, whatever you want to call it. And so that leads to, stolen land and stolen lives. So we can kind of see, I talk about dispossession of native lands and then displacement of obviously um, enslaved folks, indigenous folks, right? Like those trajectories are very parallel in a lot of ways. And so I think for that, whenever we start to talk about like disparities, like I almost low key cringe whenever you said that that was the article because I hate talking about disparities. Like that is all, no, you're fine. It's all of the like
Also,
what
like,
it's what the researchers want to see though, right? Like show us your people's problems, lay it all out for us, and then we'll develop some interventions for it, right? But for me, I'm like, y'all are always never going to like get the point until you talk about colonialism, right? Because we didn't just pop up out of the ground with these like severe mental health issues, right? And
word.
so, like decolonizing, we have to say, y'all started this, right? Like this entire white Western system built on colonial logic is what created all of these issues, right? So disconnecting Native people from our lands, forbidding us to speak our native languages, right? Really, the breakdown of the family unit, we can see that in Black and Indigenous communities very intentionally, right? I know a lot of people talk about policing beginning with like slave catchers, but if you look, there's also huge parallel with Indian agents that would forbid us from leaving reservations or from going from like community to community because they would say like they're trying to break down community, right? They don't want you to go see other people, go see your uncle on another res, right? None of that. And so the badges, the system, the needing the paperwork, all of that is very parallel to just like keeping us under state surveillance, right?
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
think whenever we have to talk about like what is decolonizing or how are we, coming back from that or doing that, of course, people think we're all just going to go back to riding horses or, like all of that sorts of thing. I'm like, I don't even like horses, right? Like, I'm very scared of animals. So, like, don't sign me up for that. Um, but it's like, it's the point pre-colonialism, right? Like, what would our communities look like before these sort of like really harmful systems were in place to sort of break down our communities, to remove us from our lands and our languages and really our traditional ways of like knowing and being, right? So there was, anthropology gets a big kind of congratulations about telling us about what indigenous people did prior to colonialism, but like we have our own like oral stories and like storytelling traditions, right? That we know that have been passed down for generations that are not written down, right? That doesn't mean that they're less valued. And
Yeah.
so I think whenever we're trying to talk about like how are we building solidarity or like decolonization isn't for everyone. I'm like, yes, it is, right? Like, we all have ancestors, we all come from somewhere, and really uprooting everything that we've been kind of force fed and normalized throughout our lifetimes takes some time, but we all have a place to do that, and getting to do that in community with folks is so powerful.
Thank you for that. Yes, yes, it is. So, would you say that psychology and sociology in particular, and practitioners and theorists and researchers have a place in decolonizing, right? Have a place. Like, can we be in these systems, right, in these structures, and be part of this practice where we're undoing, unlearning, and literally ensuring that land ownership is back where it belongs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the kind of big, maybe, reason that people say that they can't do it because they're like, "Oh, well, if you're working with the system, you can't decolonize, like, from within," you know? And I'm like, "Well, we can't all just sit outside the system and throw rocks forever," you know? Like, we have to use, like, our power, right?
Yeah,
And
word.
I always
Yeah.
tell people, like, "You know the language that your system speaks, right?" Like,
Yeah.
the clients don't. So, one of the things that so I see a lot of, like, generational differences in decolonizing. So, like, I have an elder, we call him Uncle Moses, and he would say that, like, an example of decolonizing to him is that we weren't allowed to have, there was, like, a fire ban. He was in Oklahoma, right? That's where the Southern Cheyenne are today. And so there was a fire ban, obviously, it's like the plains, it's very dry. And so there was a burn ban, no fires, nothing allowed. And so we were like, "Well, how are we gonna have ceremony?" Right? Because we need to be able to light a fire outside. And so he's driving through the park and sees these people having, like, a barbecue on these, like, charcoal grills. And he's like so he goes to the fire chief and he's like, "How can they have a grill and we can't have, like, a contained fire for our ceremony?" And they're like, "Oh, well, it's all the like, those are fine. That's not technically considered a fire. It's a grill, whatever." Yeah. And so he's like, "So if I make a charcoal fire in this container, can we have our ceremony?" And they were like, "Well, yeah, I guess technically." So
Well,
he did that and he's like, "That's decolonizing." To me, I would be like, the fire chief should come to you and say, "This is what we know. This like this is what will be approved," because he knows that system. He knows the language of that system, right?
yes, yes.
And so, like, I would never shade Uncle Moses, right? Like, I'm just like, absolutely. But I'm also
Elder.
like, we
Yeah.
don't have to go to them, right? Like, he knew that the whole time. So,
Yes.
like, for us as, like, practitioners, as scholars, like, we know the language, like insurance, managed care, what your policies are, right? Like, the clients don't know that. Us that are trying to decolonize, we don't know that, right? But you do. So use your power, use your knowledge, use your privilege, leverage whatever you have to decolonize, right? You can't just be like, "Oh, well, it's not for me," right?
Yeah.
What we're gonna do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And yeah, and shout out to Uncle. Yeah, that's so real. When we start to think about the daily nitty gritty ways that that gets played out and that we can enact it and all have a role in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're right about. I'm just like really chewing on this like intergenerational understanding.
Yeah.
Of identity. Like I can think of my grandfather who's now passed on, most important human to me ever,
Mm,
and even in spirit world, he's deeply
mm,
important to me and guides me. And he would consistently remind me about the trash that America is, and
okay.
the ways like he didn't use colonization or embargo or that, but he was
Right.
showing me what was happening. He would show me when I would go to Panama. Like, you see that little boy with a machine gun. Do you know why that happened? Do you understand why this is happening? Do you
Aw.
understand why U.S. is coming to trying to take the canal and Noriega? And my mother would be like, "That's too much. Like
Mhm.
you're gonna make her a little communist." you
I
know,
love that.
but right? And like meanwhile, back on the ranch, when I think about how I've been politicized and how that's shifted and how it's changed, been like, oh, you've been telling me and showing me and guiding me since the beginning. And although there was resistance, and I would disagree at
Mhm.
times, and I don't know, I would this weird early 20s patriotic stint, you know?
Uh-huh.
Just like
I
not getting
know.
it,
I was there too.
right? Trying to
Yeah.
acclimate. And I don't think we talk about that enough, that like,
Yeah.
even if we are from certain identities, ways of being, cultures, that doesn't mean that we stay always having known and that we always walked a
True.
hella, air quotes, woke ass path or a
Right.
decolonized path. Right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it makes me think about that we all need to start somewhere, and that for folks that might be listening thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna cringe or I'm gonna pull back." I think that the process can start with oneself, so that it makes me wonder, if you could tell us, like, who are you? Like, who are your people, and who are you? And, could you just share a little bit about, you told us a little bit already about yourself in so many ways, but about where you come from and what growing up might have been like, and how that, like, indigiqueer, love that Southern Cheyenne identity
Yeah.
comes through you today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that you were talking about, like, we all have to start somewhere. Like, I grew up in a small town in Arkansas. Like, we had 2 stoplights. So whenever people are talking about, like, where like, I did not come out of the womb, like, knowing about like, everything was racist, but we were there was 1 Native family, there's 1 Black family, there's 1 Latinx family, I think maybe 2 Asian families, and then the rest of the town was white. So, like, my hometown was called Greenwood, Arkansas, but we called it Whitewood. Like, everybody called it Whitewood. So I'm like, I am from, like, Whitewood, Arkansas, right? Like, so if
Where
you are gonna tell me, like, "Oh, people can't come from whatever," like, brother,
Mm,
it was
mm,
Confederate flags on everybody's
wow.
trucks at high school. I got sent home from the pep rally because they were having it themed as a powwow, and I said, "That's offensive," and I got called to the office. My mom had to come down to the school, and the principal was like, "Now, Rashinda," as my mom say, he's like, "Rashinda, we don't mean anything by that, and, if Autumn has a problem with it, she can go home for the day, but we're still gonna have it."
Wow.
Yeah, that was their
Wow.
solution, was to send me home. I was
Wow.
like, "Okay." So, I grew up, yeah, small town Arkansas was my mom, my sister, and I, and then my grandpa passed, and so my grandma moved
Mm,
in with us, so I always say, like, my mom and my grandma were my 2 parents, like,
mm.
and we just did life together, like, they were strong, full-blooded Cheyenne women, and we lived right on the border of Oklahoma and Arkansas, so my grandma actually moved her family, like, my mom, her brothers and sisters, whenever they were in, like, 5th grade, I think, from Oklahoma to Arkansas because they were experiencing so much, like, anti-Indigenous racism. She thought that
Mm.
Arkansas would be a better place for them than to be, like, in Oklahoma. So, it was, like, a lot of survival strategies at that time, right? And
Yeah.
then whenever my mom was started to grow up, my grandma remarried, we started to grow up and, like, you could see that she wanted us to, like, know who we were, know where we came from, and so we started, you know she would really make it intentional for to bring us to, like, tribal events, like, we would always be driving over into Oklahoma, like so our tribe, like, lives on the other side of Oklahoma City, so it's, like, about 5 hours to drive,
Oh,
but,
wow.
like,
It's a long
we would
way.
do it. Yeah,
That's
like
great. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, even if though we didn't grow up, like, on tribal lands, I feel like we didn't miss anything because we still got to, like, go for events, we went for ceremonies, like, my mom taught us how to dance, like, my grandma was super traditional, and so I just really appreciated, like I just wanted to soak it all up, like, I wanted to know, like, what does it mean to be Cheyenne, right? What are our ways? What does it mean to be Native? Um, and so I feel like that was probably one of the biggest privileges of my life, I think, is to, like, grow up with my mom who was, like, head lady dancer for several, like,
Mm.
events and powwows, and so she was, like, obviously beautiful, right? But I'm like, it's so cool that
Yes,
she would, like
Rashida.
yes, Miss Rashida, she would, like, bring us out there and, like, show us how to dance, like, that's huge, right? There's a lot of people
Good
that are still,
piece.
like, trying to reconnect that are like, "I don't know what that means, I don't know, how to conduct myself in ceremony, I don't know how to what are our values," and those sorts of things. And
Yeah.
so, I think, like, growing up with that connection, I didn't realize at the time how, like, huge that was, right, until I got, I think, really into my master's program, and people were like, we had to stop class one day because people were talking about an extended family. And I was like, what is that? Like, what do you mean extended family? Like, I have 9 cousins. I can tell you where every single one of them is right now. Like, what is what's extended? And they were like, oh, well, like normally for holidays and stuff, you don't see the people that aren't like either directly above you or below you. So like most people only see their children or their grandparents, but they don't like aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, they don't do all of that. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. So, like, oh my gosh, right? Like I was really sad that day. It was a policy class too. But she was like, this is so interesting that you that doesn't like resonate for you. And I was like, we do life together. Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
we do. Like even my grandma's like best friends or cousins or whatever, like those are my grandmas too, like
Mm-hmm.
there is no great aunt or whatever it's supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be, I'm like, that's my grandma. Like I have several grandmas. That's my grandpa. I have several grandpas. And I think just like growing up in community like that and being in community, whenever people ask me today, like how do you be in community? I'm like, several folks do not have that same experience, right? Like did not grow up with that. And so trying to like teach that for other people or model that or be that for other people truly, I think that's a huge part for me of like being a decolonial person, right? Is to like
Yeah.
to weave us all back together.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And you are doing that. And I would imagine that you're doing that also for the youth, yeah, that you have
Yeah.
in your home. And so we may like congratulations.
Yeah. Thank
Oh, you
you.
are you are hitched with your partner. How long have you been with your partner? Do you want to tell us a little bit about?
Yeah. Yeah. We
We love
met.
love. We love love.
We met actually 8 days before the first pandemic shutdowns happened. So we had our
Whoa.
first date. And, it's kind of like the queer first date, like, you just kind of hang out for, like, 12 hours and then decide that you're doing life together after that. So,
I love it.
yeah.
It's efficient. It's efficient and it
Yeah, it's just like, "Okay, well, I like you, and so I think we're just gonna be hanging out till we're not, and we're still hanging out." So
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Are they also in research or
oh,
policy
no.
or no?
No, we are total opposites. She's in the business world, like business, finance, supply chain, yeah,
Okay, yes.
totally different
Okay.
worlds, and I'm like, I could not be around people that much. Like I love people, but I could not I have so much social anxiety, I could not do it, like, every day. Can't do
Yes,
it.
I could imagine. Yes. And so yes, now you have children. Yes, you're raising children together.
Yeah, yeah, so we
Yes.
have 3 kiddos. They're my partner's, 3 nieces and nephews. So we took them
Beautiful.
in, a couple years ago, and they're actually about to make the transition back to their bio mom. So we're
Okay.
lots of changes, yeah.
Yeah. Empty nest so quickly. Right.
Yeah,
But
I know, it's gonna be weird. I asked her, I was like, "Are you sure you still, like, just like me? Like, it's just gonna be me and you." Like, what are we gonna do?
Yeah. It sounds exciting, and again, congratulations. And I also wanted to ask you if it feels appropriate to answer, how is Miss Rashinda doing? I know that mom, you shared very openly that mom was experiencing some challenges with health, so we wanna uplift her.
Yeah, well, she made her journey a year ago today, actually.
So
So,
sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah,
Right.
it was weird. I think that's it throws people off because I still talk about her like she's here, which
Which I
she is.
love.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, today's which it's I feel like I'm always grieving, so it's like, what's another day? Um, but yeah, like she began hospice at the beginning of this month, and so like a year ago. So that makes me feel like more of the like that was the last time I talked to her. And today was like the day that she was officially not in this physical realm anymore,
Mm.
but she's always here.
Yes. What would you say are some of well, I hear dance, yeah? That
Oh yeah.
dance was a large piece of what she brought to you. Um, what are, like, 1 or 2 other things that constantly remind you of her essence?
Oh gosh, everything really. I was gonna
I
say.
could imagine. Mm.
Um, Well, I think it's so funny, like, parenting while, like, grieving your own parent. Like, there are so many times that, like, I would think, like, well, if Mr. Shinda was here, she would say, "This is what we're supposed to do." But I think it was really interesting, like, near the end, like, I remember it was such a conflict whenever she was getting sick and we had first got the kids, like, we all lived together at the same time. And, of
Mm.
course, my mom parented us from a small town in Arkansas, right? Like, we're in the Bible Belt, okay? Like, and so for us, we're like 2 queer parents parenting very differently, right? And so it
Mhm.
would
I
be
could
like,
imagine.
"Yeah," my mom's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I think we're just gonna talk to them." Like, I think, like, it's a concept, but I think we're just gonna talk. And, like, I remember one of our last conversations, she told me, she was like, "I see what you're trying to do here." And that was, like, so validating for me because 'cause I'm like, "I don't know how to be a
Mm.
parent,"
Mm.
but, like, her, like, giving me that permission almost, it was like, it's huge, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
seeing, like,
that's
all the
beautiful.
littles' growth and stuff, I'm like, "I think we did okay," you know? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And what is your relationship to grief, if you don't mind me asking? That's a
yeah,
question we often ask guests that come on. What is their relationship to grief and rage? Because, A, that's not, we don't start meeting people and often have that level of depth of
mhm,
conversation where we're bringing forth this aspect that is often uncomfortable and sticky. And I suppose I wonder if others are thinking, like, yeah, like, how do you don't look like you're grieving, air quotes. I've even had
yeah,
that said to me, like, "Well, you're so strong," or "You got this."
right.
And meanwhile,
Yeah,
like we're impermeable, like nothing gets to us,
right,
and that's not true.
right.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, do you have a relationship with grief, or did it just, like, backslap you?
No, yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's so interesting. I think that's really interesting too about how you said, like, folks don't really have, like, that deep conversation about grief. Like, for me, I feel like how you can tell that, like, when people know that you're, like, a psychologist, and they know that you're a social worker, and they just, like, start talking to you about everything in the grocery line, and you're like, "Okay, wow," Like, I feel like there's that with grief. Like, I feel like I meet people all
Mm,
the time, and they're like, "Is your mom not here anymore?" And I'm like, "No, she's not." And they're like, "Mine either." And we just, like, have these profound conversations, like, at the thrift store. Like, there's a lady at the thrift store, she showed me pictures of her mom, we talked about her mom, like, she asked about because I got a shirt that was, like, a little leather, like, suede shirt, and I was like, "My mom used to have a shirt like this." And she was like, "Is your mom not here anymore?" And I was like, "No, she's not." And she was like, "Me either." And we just so, like, I feel like there is this community of grievers that I've found that people just know or they
beautiful.
ask, and you have that, like, really deep connection, and, like, I think I did so much work of, like, decompartmentalizing myself that, like, I can't do that anymore, Like,
Mm, good for
I always
you.
say that, like, that's why I had, like, issues in my, like, first faculty position because 'cause I'm like, "I can't be one person and then be another person here." Like, this is me all day, every day. Like, I can't go back to the box, you know?
Yes,
And so
yes,
now as, like, a griever, it's like, my grief does not fit in a box. Like,
yes.
she wakes up with me, we do life together, like,
Mm.
and I started writing, like, I call them, like, little shitty poems. Like, they're not really poems, but they're just, like, and I just say, like, my grief is wearing a Santa hat. My grief is saving Hyrule,
Aw.
like, whatever, or, like, my grief wants me to make a childhood meal, and so I'll do that, like, so I'm like,
Mhm.
this is, like, a new way of being in the world for me with grief, like, it's just, like, I have to I have to learn how to do life all over again with
Yeah,
grief, you know?
yeah. It's a companion.
Yeah. It's like, she's
Yeah.
not you can't put her on the shelf, you can't
Nope.
tuck her away anywhere. Because 'cause I'm like, that's when people are not dealing with their stuff, right? Where it's like,
Yes.
"Oh, wow, you're yelling at everybody." Like,
Yeah.
"Go home and feel your feelings?"
Yeah.
It's like, meanwhile, I'll cry in Trader Joe's, right? Like, I'm just like, "Well, the grief is here, so we're
Yep.
crying."
It's
Like,
Caesar salad. Yeah.
seriously. She's like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good." Like,
Feeling my
"It's
feels.
fine." Yeah. I'm like, "It's fine. Thank you."
Yeah. Yeah. And what a beautiful modeling as well. Do you feel like that comes through in your work as researcher, as teacher? Do you find I'm asking because working at the university when I used to and when teaching, the stuff that we're not teaching about and the underlying levels and the layers of it, it would inevitably come up.
Oh.
So sometimes I would see somebody sitting there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to check in with them afterwards. Or
Mhm.
um, I could see that their irritation constantly was this sort of
Mhm.
internalized grief that was like choking them and really needed to come out in some
Yeah.
way. Or they linger a little bit after class. And you're like, hey, how's it going? Talk to
Mhm.
me. I think you're thinking about resources and connecting people. And so I wonder how, grief shows up in your work that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely. And again, part of the, like, this is me all the time, like, I used to, like, really hardcore tell myself, like, I would steel myself to go into the building, like, to be on campus. And, like, to teach, I'd be like, "Just keep it to the PowerPoint, keep it," like, "Just hold it in," you know? And then, like, the very first class that I taught, even this semester, I was just like, well, my mom died last year, and my kids are about to go back to their bio mom, and the world is on fire, and we're here to talk about policy. So, like, let's get into it?
Yeah.
And that's like every single class we have the like real conversation part, the kind of like, why are we doing this? Why are we here? What is the point of this? And I kind of think that those are the questions that like grief has you ask all the time, right? Of like, why am I even still going? Right? Like, what
Yeah.
am I doing here? What is the purpose of this? And I think that really lands for a lot of people. Like, my midterm evaluations, we mostly talked in class, but the couple of people that did the online, like anonymous version, it was like, thanks for treating us like adults. Like, that's like
Mm.
a welcome change. And I'm like, you see, like, nobody wants to be treated in this little perfect bubble of like, this is what we're talking about. This is the course content. And it's like, no, I'm a real person. Like, I grieve, I
Yes.
hurt, I'm
Yes.
scared too, like all
Yes.
of those sorts of things. And I think some people who are living in their masked existence, it pisses them off. It like that
Mm.
makes them so upset? So it's like you
Yeah.
can see like the people in faculty meetings that are just like, here she goes again, like, and I'm like, I'm actually not sorry, like I've done a lot of work to like be here, to even get here,
Yeah.
like emotionally, physically,
Yes.
spiritually, right? Like,
Yes.
how many people have worked for me to be here. So like,
Yes.
no, I'm not gonna shrink. I'm not gonna pretend to be somebody else. I'm not gonna sit
Yes.
and be seen and not heard,
Yes.
like
Yes.
I'm not gonna do it. But then the people that like are longing for that, we can all like thrive together, or be
Yes.
miserable together, whatever the occasion calls
Yes.
for.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's power in that as well, right? There's
Yeah.
power meaning like a sense of sovereignty and a sense of
Yes.
authenticity. I think for me,
Yeah.
at least, being able to connect and sit or with students, with others, like, so, SNAP benefits are being withheld, and this is happening, and this is happening, and this, and
Mhm.
right, Palestinian children are starving, and these children, and are the children well? Let us talk. Are the children well? And if the
Okay.
children are not well, what does that say about us as a society? And
Right.
right, and
Right.
let us sit with this big level grief. Like, I cry
Mhm.
often. I'm sobbing often, and
Yeah.
I'm also enraged often, just
Yeah.
at the audacity of where we are. And yet this for me, I wonder for you how this lands, but there is this sort of very big, deep, quiet knowing and a like a knowing with a capital K,
Mhm.
like an
Yeah.
ancestral knowing for me
Mhm.
that some of the work that some of us, not just us too, but many of us that have been digging up and shaking, and the tables that we've been shaking, and the presence and the authenticity that we've been bringing, and even some of the unapologeticness of
Mhm.
our ancestral bigness, has kind of created this little shitstorm from
Yeah.
these like colonial energies,
Mhm.
principalities, like the
Yeah.
core,
Yeah.
uh, let's say darker spirits, we'll call, of,
Yeah.
of these old energies and entities. I feel like you
Truly.
understand what I'm saying here.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and we're here. We're in it. We're in the
Mhm.
clawing and the fear-basedness of like,
Mhm.
oh no, we're not gonna let go. We're not gonna become
Mhm.
obsolete. We need to stay in line. We need to be in time. We need to talk about these things. This is what a professor is like. And we're like, no, 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 no,
Exactly.
no.
I'm like,
No, 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 no.
nope.
This is what it
Yeah.
looks like.
Right.
Right? I don't
Yeah.
know how that lands for you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like our ancestors fought way too hard for us to be afraid to show up in spaces. Like you were not like I always think too, like my grandma's Ethelene Joyce Moore, and I'm like, you cannot tell me that you would stand up to my grandmother, Ethelene Joyce Moore, and say that to her. So you're definitely not gonna say it to me. You know?
Yes.
Like
Yes. Yes.
saying that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that there's a quote that I love. Being misunderstood is the tax that you pay for being authentic.
Mm.
Right? And I have that
Mm.
on one of my little kind of digital vision boards, because
Yeah.
I'm being reminded that each time I take a step and more honest, more boundaried, more present, that it is going to piss off a lot. And not that there's
Ella.
not accountability, not that there's not, not that we're not
Right.
also
Right. Right. Right.
human, fallible, real, growing from things, but there's also a place where it's like, wait, we're not here to be palatable for everybody. I'm not here to just sing on everyone's tongue, yet
Okay.
hate my own.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And I used to feel like that too in the university. It was a sense of, I mean, I had to leave because I was literally like dying, literally dying and literally not being allowed in places and spaces and kind of relegated into these margins. And I was organizing with students and uplifting, some of the folks that, work in maintenance and transportation, our cafeteria crew. And
Mhm.
um, our university at the time was going through a massive change. I was working as student affairs in the counseling center. And then I'm sure you know how this is, also doing 8 other jobs
Right.
part-time as well
Right.
in
Right.
the
Right.
university, including being an instructor for grad studies or counseling. And I loved my students. Like, and I love many of my folk, many of my people and my colleagues. I actually went back maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and I did a keynote for Mind Body Spirit Day, for
Yeah.
my dear sister friend Vanita, who's the director of the Women's Center for Diversity and Equity. And some of my like old school like maintenance crew that are now 10 years older, came out. Our
Yeah.
prior admin assistant from 10 years ago came out, who works in
Yeah.
another department, and that made me emotional. Does that make
Mhm.
like that
Mhm.
made me emotional, like feeling remembered,
Mhm.
feeling like the relationship. And it wasn't like an ego remembrance. It was like,
Right.
yeah, I might have had to leave university. I might have
Mhm.
had to leave because I was dehydrated, soul dehydrated,
Seriously.
emotionally, physically, doing too much, being paid too little,
Mhm.
and something had to come out of me. My students called me to task. They were like, "Yeah, we put you online on something called Instagram." And I was like, "You did what?" They're like, "Yeah, we want you to go on Instagram. We want you to talk all this stuff, this historical stuff, this intergenerational stuff, the stuff you do with us in group. You're gonna do that on Instagram." And I was like,
Yeah.
y'all, like at
Oh
first,
my gosh, that is
on
so
a
cool.
yeah, at first I was so pissed because I was like, I'm too, I don't know why, the ageism in it. I was like, too old for this. But as time went on, it was like, oh, I get to get this out. I get this out and get this out. And so when 2020 hit, I don't know if you know this, but again, 2020 hit, they started offering voluntary severance in the fall. And I said, no,
Wow.
no. And my people's choice Smith was like, when will you be ready? When will you be ready?
Wow.
Decolonizing therapy. You're doing something here. People are hearing it. they're feeling it more importantly and your vulnerability is showing up, maybe it's time to take the voluntary severance and go. Um,
Wow.
it was scary.
I'm sure. Oh my gosh.
It's like, and some days I look back and I'm like, maybe.
The alignment
Yeah.
though, that's what happens when you live in alignment. Like it
Thank
happened how
you.
it's supposed to.
Yeah, it happens how it's supposed to, and so, yeah, thanks for listening to me. Yes, and I
Yes. No,
went on a
that's
little rant there,
amazing. I
but
love
it
that.
it reminds me in terms of your work of how you have folks constantly looking to you, for, right? But also, like, y you have your parenting, with your partner's nieces and nephews, and I in some way, and I say this in, like, the auntie way, like the joke on the extended family. Right? Like, you're I imagine that many of your students and probably even colleagues and other faculty are looking at you like, yeah, maybe I can be a little bit more authentic. Like maybe I can step up a little bit more. Maybe I can bring my people's identity and history into this work as well. Like, do you realize that? Do you absorb that?
No, I receive it right now, but wow, no, I've never thought about it like that. Like
Yeah.
that's powerful.
Yeah. I had actually had someone in our office hours community say that you actually, and I did not get their permission to provide their name and I will not, but what they did say, they're Paiute Indian, their people or somewhere. I think they told me, like Nevada, Oregon, what is now Nevada, Oregon, that area. And they said that your presence in the world and online and the way that you show up so fiercely has been a literal lifesaver for them.
So
Yeah.
cool. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. And so I want to remind us all that we don't even realize it. That
Yeah.
sometimes we're helping people refine their center.
Mm.
Yeah. And so I have like one or two more questions. I don't want to keep you too long, but even though I can
Okay.
talk to you all day
I
long.
know.
um, let's say there is a young, indigenous, brown, black scholar coming onto the scene and they're like, I want to do that. Like I want to do that. And I don't want it to eat me alive or almost kill me like it did Dr. Jenn. Or are there a few tips or words of wisdom that you would wrap them in, that you would say to them to allow them to like maybe last a little longer, to preserve themselves, to be well? What are some things you'd like them to know before stepping into the ivory tower?
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one. I think the biggest thing for me is community. Like even whenever I went to get my master's degree, my mom and my grandma moved with me to Tulsa. So my mom was like, "You focus on school, I'll pay the bills." And I was like, "Okay," because I like none of us had ever left Arkansas at that point, right? Like I remember my mom saying that she was so scared to move, but like
Mm,
she wanted to be there with me. And then the exact same thing whenever I wanted to get my PhD, they were like, well, I guess we're all going to St. Louis. And so my mom and my grandma moved up to St. Louis with me. And then about 6 months in, my sister moved in too. And we all lived there for about 5 years together, like just doing life. We got connected with the Native Women's Care Circle in St. Louis and got to do like full moon ceremonies with them.
mm,
And then coming here to Denver, my mom moved with me after about 6 months. And then we got the kiddos about the first year in. And like, I also, whenever I started my faculty position here, there was a couple other folks in my cohort that got hired together, and we were all people of color. And it was like, people were not happy about that. And I think it's really just having that community, right? Like they say that like academia is so isolating. And I've always been like, if I need to go home, I will go. Like
yeah.
I don't care what the consequences are academically, like I will leave. And so I think if you're going into it, like you either bring your community with you or like you have to intentionally like build that support for yourself Otherwise, because it's like there are so many times that I say like if I didn't have my mom right there, like I would have got in my car and drove all the way back to Arkansas, like from St. Louis and never came back. Like there are so many times that like they really like how you were saying about like they will try to suck your soul out. Like
Yes.
they want you to be who they want you to be and forget who you are and like why you're there. And if you don't have people that know you, truly know you to say, don't listen to that, or that's gaslighting, or that's like very toxic behavior, like then you will. Like it's a very kind of like insular environment that it's very easy to just accept that what people are telling you about you is the truth.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have people that know you and can ground you and like feed you,
Yes.
spiritually, physically, right?
Because you're gonna
Um,
need it.
absolutely, absolutely. Like I had to relearn how to eat breakfast after my doctoral
Mm.
program, like
Word.
right? Like it's just like, oh, people eat food in the morning and not like 3 cups of coffee. Oh, weird. Weird. That's really weird.
Yes. 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 Or the level of like not having. Oh my gosh, I feel like I just was eating whatever was cheapest. Like
Mm-hmm.
little ramen packs, pasta.
Mm-hmm.
I would share with my doctoral friends because we went
Yes.
through like either like our part-time job being fired because it's really rigorous to be in a doctoral program. And if you don't have family, community partners with or around you, I didn't. I up and went to California by myself. And like my cohort ended up, we ended up supporting each other and taking turns cooking.
Wow. And you know how rare that is? Like, I feel like that's almost another like generational difference, even from my time, because like the doc students now, like they hate each other. Like everybody is like, yes, like my cohort, none of us talk to each other. Like it was
Wow.
so competitive. It's so, and like I feel like even my mentors, they were like, oh yeah, we were like collegial, but it was definitely competitive. But nowadays they're like, it's like the Hunger Games. And I'm like, your
Interesting.
degree is separate. Like it's not a group
Yes.
PhD, but
No.
it's very intense. It's very
Yeah.
cutthroat. And like, I think the administrators will say, like, oh, your cohort's your family. And I would be like, I don't talk to my family that way. Like, I don't know what this is, but it's not for me?
Word. Yeah.
So,
Then I would say to our doctoral students out there to definitely do it different, right? To bring in some of that collectivistic consciousness into it,
yeah.
especially, right? If we're in a like anti-colonial,
Okay.
queer ass path, like queerness in itself, in my humble opinion, right? Like the queerness in me deeply desires community because that's where it's safer
Mm-hmm.
generally, not always, but
I'm gonna
this
say
sense.
Denver and the white queers, watch
No,
yourself. Watch
uh,
yourself.
that's real. That's
And
so
the
real.
co-optation too. I mean, what are we talking about with decolonizing? There are so many people that are like the most like upholding of colonial structures, and they're like, we're decolonizing. Are you
Say it.
sure? Are you sure? Like,
It's messy and scary. I'll be real. Like I'm in this phase in my life, um, where I feel like I expand and contract towards new friends and
mm-hmm,
not, like
mm-hmm,
that there's this wanting to, and then this very real, understandable contraction
mm-hmm.
towards safety.
It's the
And I'm
ripcord.
constant, right? Right?
That's what I'm just like, like we're out.
Like, is it safe for little Jen? Is it safe, And this sensation of like, no, 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 I got my people. Like one of my best friends will be like, no new friends. I think that's a song or something. She's like, no new friends, no new friends. Jen,
I know
you're
that's
too
right.
nice to people. You trust people too much. And the thing is,
Seriously.
I'm enthralled by people's stories, how we got here,
Mm-hmm,
why. And I was raised to like love on my people,
mm-hmm,
that neighbors fed us and we fed
mm-hmm,
them, and so I suppose there is this part of me that is still deeply tries to embody that,
mm-hmm.
despite the burn marks when it doesn't
I know
always
that's
go.
right. Mm-hmm. That's what my friend Moni said. She was like, "We love hard." Like, so when it doesn't work out, it hurts, right? With friends, with
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
neighbors, like, because
Yeah.
we don't know to like withhold parts of ourselves, for safety. We're like, anything you need, 1,000%, I'm all there.
Yeah. 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 And I think that is part of that for me anyway, this decolonial embodiment journey, right? Like very clear that I am part of land. And therefore, part of this undoing process is myself, my relationship to my body, my relationship to other people, my relationship to conflict, whether it goes to 100 or whether it's at 0 and hiding, right? Like really noticing all of that. And at the end of the day, being in complete adoration and love for myself and
Yeah.
compassion, which is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that are you a compassionate person towards yourself? Are you like a hard on yourself person?
Hmm. That's a good question. I was gonna say I would say something and my partner would say something else. So like, because I would say
Always,
no, I'm very compassionate to myself. My partner would be like,
right?
girl,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Like, so we talk about like perfectionism. So
Mm.
if you do astrological signs, I'm a Virgo, so we're like a hardcore perfectionist apparently. And I'm like, to me, it's not. I don't think about it as perfection. I'm like, but I want it done a certain way, right? So when it's
Right.
not done that way, it's irritating to me. And my partner's like, that's perfectionism. Like that's your version of perfectionism, right? So like, yeah, I'm hard on myself whenever I'm like, I should be doing this, but I'm not. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of in this like, I call it like my like grief pendulum, because I'm like,
Mm.
I can honor my grief and slow down and take time, but then the swing back of the pendulum is like especially with it being like a year anniversary, I'm like, I should have done more. Like I should be further along. I should have managed more affairs or, done more things by now. And but then I'm like swing back into grief and I'm like, no, but look at all of the like slowing down that I did to
Mm.
grieve and like fundamentally move differently in the world. So then it doesn't swing back the other way, because then I'm like, I did what I was supposed to do. I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do, and I'll sign the papers whenever I need to sign the, like it'll happen when it needs to happen. So,
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. Would you say that there is a relationship there also with like rage and that big emotion? Or is that
oh
something
yeah.
you're like,
Oh no, I'm hardcore into my rage. Like, oh my gosh, there's a grief quote that was like, I don't measure my grief in time, but I also don't scream as much when I cry anymore. And that was like very hitting for me, because it's like I do remember like scream crying, like screaming at the top of my lungs, like, and there's like I think that's part of like indigenous grief ceremonies of like wailing and like
uh-uh.
just like my partner's always like it has to come out. And like sometimes tears are not enough. Like I need to scream at the top of my lungs. And at first it scared me. Like I was like, whoa, like afterwards,
Mm,
I'm like, wow, that was very intense. But
uh,
now, like last night, just needed to cry. Like, and it was
mm,
it. But like I
mhm.
can tell like whenever I'm having my like crying time that I know that I need more.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
very like, what does my rage require of me now? Like how can I honor that without like shaming myself? Like what does my little Audie need like to be able to fully
Mm,
express herself?
mm, I love that. And I hope if folks are listening, you write down these journal prompts because that's what they are, honey. Just like these self-care
Yeah.
places to stop. You even mentioned it before about your grief, these grief poems. That's that's the it doesn't have to be called the work, but for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that is some of the daily work we need to do with ourselves
Yep.
when we are in a place of transition, I believe, right? With the
Absolutely.
grief, the rage, the outgrowing ourselves, that the death of ourselves, the
Mm-hmm.
resurrection of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so what? might you say to 8-year-old, if I may, little Audie? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Little,
Audie, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that's my
What might
little
you say? Little.
Oh, I love little Audie. I think 8-year-old me was trying so hard to like do everything for everyone. Like I was like very much a little parent, like um and so I think like just telling her that like you are enough just as
Mm,
you are. You don't have to earn love. You don't have to make dinner for everyone. You know, you don't have to have everything perfect by the time everyone comes home at 5 p.m. Like
word. Mm,
just be. It's okay to just be.
just be. That's beautiful. Uh, I um I deeply thank you, and I thank all of your people. I can think of 18 other questions I want to ask. However, alas, I want to get to ancestors and this and
I
that and
know.
ritual. Maybe that's a part two somewhere else.
Yes.
Um, I also wanted to bring into the space more as a closing. I mean, altar and altars are really sacred to me and my people. And I have a rage altar for my sacred ancestors, my raging ancestors, or the ancestors that have not been able to release and rage, or they would be or have been killed, displaced, hurt, harmed, raped. Um, but my rage, I'm looking at it, my rage altar is also for little me, for all the places and ways where I'm too hard on myself. So I am not a Virgo sun. I'm a Cancer sun, which people feel sometimes, but I'm a Virgo rising,
Hey.
a Venus in Virgo, Mars in Virgo, and North Node in Virgo. So literally right now, what is coming up for me is this like, I think I have built scaffolding for safety, but sometimes it be a prison. And
Ooh.
perfectionism has been becoming like a prison. So
Mhm.
I get it, and I'm a Capricorn moon, so
You
there's
too.
really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought to myself, with this altarpiece, I was like sitting with it, and I put it back, and I did it, and I told Triple, wait, I gotta go get it, and it was on my other special ancestral altar, but this, and forgive me, I don't want to say the names wrong, but this is from Ojibwe. I'm really bad sometimes with language, so I apologize. And elders, my first keynote ever in what is now
Wow.
known as Toronto, right? They created this beautiful beaded. I don't know if y'all can see this.
Yeah.
And did this whole ceremony. I was part of the ceremony. My ancestry was part of the ceremony, and this was in early 2020, January 2020. Um,
Wow.
and they're the Ojibwe, Métis, and Haudenosaunee nations, First Nations, and Canada. And so I just wanted to put this on our altar as just a sense of like collective love, solidarity. And this is on my altar, and I uplift this constantly because I speak to the energies of decolonizing therapy. And I feel like this work is part of my path and lineage and what I'm here to lay down. So
Beautiful.
places.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to ask if there was anything energetically, physically, word wise, anything you'd like to place on our altar together.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was thinking about how we talked about my mom and dancing, and her first dress that she had is Southern cloth traditional, so it's wool, and it's a black dress. And the shells traditionally for us are elk teeth, like elk
Mm.
teeth bones that are like a bunch. But her first dress was instead of elk teeth, she had cowrie shells, which are like
Mm.
were used as currency like in Africa, right? And so she used to be so embarrassed by that 'cause she was like, it's not elk teeth. We couldn't afford elk teeth, like, and now I think like, was that like prophetically for us to like sowing seeds of like building bridges of like Black and Indigenous liberation and solidarity. So the dress is super heavy and it's also in storage because I don't want the kids to mess it up. But if I could put mom's black cowrie shell
Mm.
dress on there, I think that's what I would offer for today.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Autumn, for being here. Thank you for your presence in the world. Thank you for your scholarship. Thank you for your embodied natural abolitionist self. Thank you to all the generations before you, particularly 7 generations before. Thank you so much for all the ways that you help us unlearn and relearn. And thank you for also your vulnerability and talking a bit about yourself. I think that it's really beautiful, and it's just one of the things that really draws me to you. So thank you. Thank you for being here. We're never again going to be in this place, in this space, at this time, in this world with this shitstorm, right? As well as with some of the beautiful things like love and connection and partnership. So I uplift you in all of your grief and also in all of the ways that you are reconstructing new roads home, whatever that means for you. Would you like to tell our listeners where they can find you best and anything you'd like to direct them to?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to share that in Cheyenne to say thank you, we say nia-ish. So like your knee ish. So nia-ish. Thank you so much for having me. You can always check me out on most social media platforms at Dr. Blackdear. And you can also check out my website that I'm updating, promise, which is drblackdeer.com. So, yay.
And of course, we will have all of that in the show notes with links so that you can easily access content, information, research, and contact forms for Dr. Blackdear. Thank you again for listening. May you all find place and space to hydrate yourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally, and continue to do the good work, whatever that means to you. May you be more authentic, and may this podcast have added to your day rather than taken anything away. Thank you for being here. Bye. From Root to Bone is a podcast from Decolonizing Therapy. It is hosted by me, Dr. Jenn Mullen. Our producer is Tribble at Ash Tribble Incorporated. Original music by Laura Burke and cover art by Madre Shell. Don't forget to find us on Instagram at Decolonizing Therapy and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Decolonizing Therapy, for the full video version of each episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your people and leave us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps people find us. For more info about Decolonizing Therapy, visit our website, www.decolonizingtherapy.com. Be well.